Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. Today we have some massive tidbits, including a big tease from voice actress Michelle Ang, who's given us a very good reason to be nervous about the fate of Omega at the end of Season 3. We also have some information from Jennifer Corbett and Brad Rau, some big teases for Asajj Ventress, Fennec Shand, and Omega's sister, the scientist Emerie Karr. This comes from holofiles.com, and in their conversation with Michelle Ang, she spilled a surprising amount of info. She starts by talking about the general vibe of Season 3, and the sort of role Omega plays, saying this: despite her youthfulness, Omega takes on a caretaker role in Season 3, particularly towards her brother Crosshair, who is, quote, going through trauma, PTSD, and also the reintegration of relationships after the fracture with the Bad Batch. They bring him back in. She continued, Crosshair learns what forgiveness is, and real love in the face of betrayal, and then reuniting together again, and what that's going to look like. So it sounds as though Crosshair is going to face his former friends once again in two different scenarios. As an adversary, trying to process the past, his feelings of betrayal which we saw in the first 2 seasons, but also where that journey leads, potentially reuniting with them and fighting with them at the end. But I don't think he's going to make it out alive. But anyway, going back to the subject of Omega, an interesting connection the character has in Season 3 is to Asajj Ventress. The connection might not be obvious at first, but there is one, and it plays into fan theories that maybe this version of Asajj is a clone, although I do think the Star Wars databank kind of debunks that more or less. But she says Omega just doesn't interact with the Batch, but also Asajj Ventress. Quote, Ventress was really interesting to Omega. She comes across as formidable, and she's one of those characters that makes Omega take a step back. There's a mixture of fear and respect, but also intrigue. I wonder if the connection has something to do with the deceased Count Dooku, his role in recruiting Jango Fett for the clone army, the fact that he was Asajj's former master. So now we come to 2 very juicy reveals, including the ending of Season 3. Up until this point, I was convinced Omega was going to survive and be a part of the larger Star Wars universe, maybe appearing in future Star Wars projects, Dave Filoni's movie, a Boba Fett Season 2, if it ever happens. And it turns out Michelle confirms that was originally the plan, but now it's changed. And now we have an actual reason to be afraid of if Omega's going to make it out alive. Here's what she said. Speaking about the early reviews, the screeners, she says, quote, audiences haven't seen the finale and where it ends, and there were slightly different ways we were going to end the show. We weren't set on exactly how it was going to end. We did have some sort of exploration, there were conversations, emotional moments. And on the subject of the original ending, she said this: it was a culmination of everything. In the alternate ending, Omega was set up with the possibility of a very large future in the Star Wars galaxy, and then it changed from there. So they were definitely going to have Omega survive, but now she says, quote, the new ending is bittersweet. Is Omega the reason that Captain Rex, Wolf and Gregor survive? Is the sweet some kind of sacrifice for her brothers? The bitter definitely to me sounds like death, or maybe frozen in carbonite. They might leave a story open-ended, with no clear consensus, no neat little bow. But don't be surprised, my dear friends, if Omega might meet her end. I would never have thought it, but maybe Disney and Lucasfilm want to wrap up this period and be done with it. Well, with the majority of early reviewers, those who got screeners saying that there are higher stakes, we should be expecting quite a hearty handful of unexpected twists. And so moving on, my dear friends, in other Bad Batch news, producers Jennifer Corbett and Brad Rau discussed 3 vital characters in the final season: Fennec Shand, Emerie Karr, and Asajj Ventress. This is with Gizmodo.com. The first question Jennifer is asked is about scientist Emerie Karr, who we met at the tail end of Season 2. She was asked, quote, why was now the right time to introduce this foil, not just for Omega but for Dr. Hemlock as well? And she says, I think what's interesting about Emerie is that even though she's Omega's sister, they're very different. And that is a product of how they were raised. Omega was born on Kamino, but her experiences with the Bad Batch have really formed who she is as a person. Whereas with Emerie's childhood, it was very different. Being raised the way she was under the tutelage of Dr. Hemlock, and she's now a tool for him for the Empire. So that is brand new information. We know that Emerie's on Mount Tantis, but we didn't know that she was always under Dr. Hemlock's wing. So she probably also has a sadistic side, just from the environment she grew up in. Jennifer goes on to say this: we wanted to show the interactions between them, because Emerie is very clinical, whereas Omega is the opposite and wants to have this kind of connection to others. Omega is much more compassionate, But what is now confirmed, as we suspected from the trailer for Season 3, there are going to be more interactions between the two, between the sisters. When talking about Asajj Ventress, it was Brad Rowell's turn to spill the beans, and he said this: "We love Ventress." I'll just say without going into too many details, as a creative team, and not just me and Jen, once we knew it was possible to bring her back, we got really excited. A lot of talk went into it, a lot of thought. Even for the design, we turned to the unfinished episodes of the Clone Wars, the ones that were the inspiration for Dark Disciple. There were already designs that were there, already ones that were created, and some early story reels too. We wanted to honour that look, her incredible hair, her lightsaber. There is so much going on. And to me it sounds as though we are going to get some Dark Disciple adapted for this show, even if it's in flashbacks. They're going to show us how Asajj survived after Quinlan Vos and Obi-Wan Kenobi brought her back to Dathomir. And so finally another massive teaser for another returning character, Ming-Na Wen's Fennec Shand. Jennifer Corbett said she is just an incredible character, and Ming-Na is just such a fun person to be around. To pair them with the batch again, because the last time they interacted was a very different story, I think speaks to what Hunter and Wrecker are willing to do in order to complete the mission, and the deals they're willing to make. So she is teasing that Fennec Shand is going to be on the side of Rex, Echo, Hunter and Wrecker in their pursuit to rescue Omega, but also in the Clone Uprising. And I wonder if this could tie into what Omega's fate truly is. Is it possible that years before Fennec Shand worked with Boba Fett, after the events of this show, she temporarily takes on Omega under her wing? Corbett says we wanted to bring someone back who is the character that makes the batch go, oh, are they going to make this deal? She was the perfect fit, because she's a boss. Having them in this episode, with her doing what they do, I mean, it was fun from breaking the story all the way to the end of animation. I was just like, I love to have her in many things. Ming-Na is on fire in the show. She's incredible. And so finally on the subject of the Bad Batch, my dear friends, another review. An awesome one that goes into more depth than the others, and actually points out some flaws. This is from Herb Scribner. He says this: "The first 8 episodes of the Bad Batch Season 3 are a thrilling return to the galaxy far, far away. The opening 3 episodes play out like a Star Wars cinematic adventure, with cloning mysteries, empire intrigue, space dogfights, stunning artwork, and plenty to sink your teeth into. There are multiple threads still hanging after the first 8 episodes, so plenty for early viewers and normal audiences to experience together. Very excited to see how this develops with weekly drops." And then he says where it could have improved, and the highlights. "For me, episodes 1 to 5 are stronger than 6 to 8, especially the 8th episode, which wasn't my favourite, though surely more traditional to the show's style. Filoni and crew definitely set up an endgame for this show, with huge ramifications for the entire Star Wars story. And of course in yesterday's video, we spoke about the early reviewers pointing out connections to The Rise of Skywalker, The Mandalorian, the cloning facilities, that kind of thing. But let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think Omega's fate is going to be? Are these words encouraging, discouraging? Are you nervous? I certainly am. Let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, my dear friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.